The rifle scope trembled, not from fear, from exhaustion. Staff Sergeant Maya Chen had been holding position for 11 hours. 11 hours in the same compressed crouch, breathing through her nose, finger resting beside the trigger guard of her Barrett M82A1. 11 hours watching a valley that looked like God had forgotten it existed. Afghanistan, Helmand Province, 2,947 meters above sea level. The kind of altitude where your lungs burned even when you weren't doing anything. She was doing everything. Her spotter, Corporal Davis, lay motionless beside her. They'd built this hide 2 nights ago. Rocks, camouflage netting, dirt that smelled like ancient death. The kind of position you either left victorious or didn't leave at all. Chen. Davis's voice came through her earpiece, barely a whisper. Movement. Grid. Echo 7. Maya's eye never left the scope. She'd already seen it. A figure, small as a grain of sand at this distance, moving along the ridgeline across the valley. Then another. Then 6 more. High-value target package. The whole reason they'd been inserted 72 hours ago with 0 support, 0 backup, and orders that essentially read, find him, confirm him, eliminate him, Khalid Nasir, Taliban commander responsible for 17 IED attacks in 3 months, 42 American casualties, faces Maya had memorized from mission briefs, names she'd never forget. Range? Her voice was mechanical, professional, the voice of someone who'd done this 43 times before. Davis worked his rangefinder, fingers moving across his data pad with practiced precision. 2,800 meters. Wind. Jesus, Chen. Wind's variable, gusting 8 to 12 knots, shifting northeast to east. 2,800 meters. 1.7 miles. Most sniper engagements happened between 600 and 800 meters. The longest confirmed kill in military history was 3,540 meters, a Canadian Special Forces sniper in Iraq. But that shot had been prepared for, calculated with computer assistance, and taken with a team of support personnel. This was Maya, Davis, a rifle, and math that would make a physicist weep. He's moving to the compound, Davis breathed. 12 military-age males, armed. Positive ID on Khalid. Checking. Facial rec confirms. That's him. Southwest corner. Tan pakol, brown shawl. Maya found him in her scope. The magnification brought the impossible distance into cruel focus. She could see his face, his beard, the slight limp in his left leg from an old wound, the face from the photographs, the man who'd sent children into marketplaces with bombs strapped to their chests. Call it, Maya said. Davis's fingers flew. 2,817 meters. Altitude differential. You're 847 meters above target. Barometric pressure 24.89. Temperature 91 degrees at your position. Estimate 97 at target level. Humidity 18%. Wind. God damn it, Chen, the wind's inconsistent. I'm reading gusts up to 14 knots now. Every variable mattered. At this distance, the bullet would drop over 800 feet. It would drift laterally. The Coriolis effect, the actual rotation of the Earth, would push the bullet right. The bullet would be in flight for over 4 seconds. 4 seconds where wind could shift, where the target could move, where 1,000 things could go wrong. They're entering the compound, Davis said, tension creeping into his voice. We're losing the window. Maya's breathing slowed. She'd trained for this, literally trained for the impossible. U.S. Army Sniper School, top of her class. Advanced courses at Fort Benning. Thousands of hours on the range, hundreds of hours in combat, but never this. Never a shot that would be measured in miles. Chen, Davis's voice was urgent now. He's at the door. 5 seconds and he's inside. We lose him. We lose everything. Extractions in 6 hours. We don't get another chance. Her finger moved to the trigger. The cold metal felt like destiny. The math screamed in her head. Elevation, 157 minutes of angle. Windage, impossible to calculate precisely with variable gusts. Lead time, if he kept moving, she'd need to aim 3 feet ahead of where he was. 3 feet at nearly 2 miles. Margin of error, 0. Chen, she squeezed. The Barrett roared. The recoil slammed into her shoulder like a freight train. The muzzle brake redirected gases with a pressure wave that kicked up dust around their position. The sound echoed across the valley, a thunderclap that announced their presence to everyone within 10 miles. Stealth was over. This was commitment. 4.3 seconds. That's how long the bullet flew. Maya watched through the scope, watched the tiny figure at the compound door, watched him take another step, watched him begin to turn, watched the universe make its decision. The .50 caliber round struck Khalid Nasir in the center of his chest. At that velocity, from that distance, with that much kinetic energy, the result was absolute. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The men around him scattered, diving for cover, rifles swinging up toward the hills, searching for a threat they couldn't possibly see. "Holy shit," Davis whispered. "Holy shit, Chen. You just pack it up." Maya's voice was empty. She was already breaking down the rifle, movements automatic, muscle memory taking over. "We've got maybe 90 seconds before they triangulate our position." "Chen, do you understand what you just did?" She understood. She understood that a man who'd killed 42 Americans would never kill again. She understood that the bullet had traveled 2,117 meters. She'd been aiming 3 meters high to compensate for the distance Davis had called. She understood that this shot would be analyzed, studied, debated. She understood that nothing would ever be the same. They moved, fast and low, abandoning the hide, following the exfiltration route they'd memorized. Behind them, rifle fire erupted, panicked, searching, finding nothing. They were already gone, ghosts in the Afghan mountains. 2 hours later, they reached the extraction point. The MH-47 Chinook came in fast, rotors beating the air into submission. Maya and Davis threw themselves aboard, and the helicopter banked hard, dropping into a valley, using terrain to mask their escape. The crew chief gave them a thumbs up. They were clear. Davis finally spoke, pulling off his helmet, face streaked with dirt and disbelief. "Chen, that was the longest shot I've ever witnessed. Maybe the longest shot anyone's ever made in combat. You know that, right?" Maya stared at the floor of the helicopter. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind the hollow ache of what she'd done. Not regret. Never regret for stopping a terrorist. But the weight. Always the weight. "It was the shot we needed," she said quietly. What she didn't say, it was the shot that would define her, the shot that would follow her forever. The shot that would change everything about how the army saw her, how her commanders used her, how the world would eventually learn her name. 2,817 meters, 1.75 miles, one trigger pull, and everything was about to change. They flew to Forward Operating Base Leatherneck in silence. Maya watched Afghanistan scroll past beneath them. Endless brown mountains, villages that looked unchanged since the Middle Ages, a land that had devoured empires. She'd been deployed here for 7 months. 7 months of dust, heat, firefights, and the grinding knowledge that every day could be your last. She'd volunteered for sniper duty because she was good at it. No, because she was exceptional at it. Because when she looked through a scope, the world made sense in a way it never did otherwise. Numbers, variables, physics, truth. The helicopter touched down. Maya and Davis grabbed their gear and headed for the TOC, Tactical Operations Center. They needed to debrief, to report the kill, to confirm mission success. But something was wrong. The base was watching them. Soldiers stopped what they were doing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Eyes followed Maya as she walked across the compound, her rifle case slung across her back. "What the hell?" Davis muttered. "Did we miss something? Did the mission leak?" Inside the TOC, Colonel Richards was waiting. He was flanked by 2 majors Maya didn't recognize, and behind them, a civilian in khakis and a polo shirt that screamed contractor or intelligence. Richards looked at Maya with an expression she'd never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment. Awe. "Staff Sergeant Chen." His voice was formal, but there was something underneath it. Something almost like reverence. "You're going to want to sit down." Maya set down her gear. "Sir, the mission was successful. Target neutralized. We can confirm." "We know." Richards cut her off gently. "Chen, we know everything. We've been tracking your position via satellite. We had eyes on that valley. We saw the shot. One of the majors stepped forward. Staff Sergeant, did you realize you were being observed during your operation? No, sir. We were operating under radio silence protocol. No communication with command. The civilian spoke now, his voice carrying the flat precision of someone who dealt in facts. Staff Sergeant Chen, at 14:47 hours local time, you fired one round from a Barrett M82A1 at a distance of 2,817 meters. Wind conditions were variable, 8 to 14 knots. Altitude differential was 847 meters. Your target was moving. You had no computer assistance, no advanced ballistics calculator, and no spotter-shooter team backup. He paused. You made that shot in 4.3 seconds, and you hit center mass. Maya said nothing. What was there to say? The civilian continued. Do you understand what you've done? That shot, that specific engagement, is going to be studied at every sniper school in the world. You've just set a record that might stand for decades, maybe longer. Colonel Richards cleared his throat. Chen, there's more. That target you eliminated? Khalid Nasir wasn't just a Taliban commander. Intelligence intercepted communications 3 hours ago. He was planning a coordinated attack on 3 coalition bases, including this one. Timing was set for tomorrow night. Vehicle-borne IEDs, suicide vests, the whole package. Estimated casualties if the attack had proceeded, 70 to 90 personnel. The numbers hit Maya like physical blows. 70 to 90 people, soldiers, Marines, support staff, maybe friends of hers, all alive because of one bullet. You didn't just make a record shot, Chen. Richard's voice was quiet now. You saved lives, potentially hundreds of lives if we factor in the cascading effects of preventing that attack. Maya's mind was reeling. She'd known the mission was important. High-value target meant exactly that. But this was beyond anything she'd imagined. What happens now, sir? Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. The civilian spoke again. Now? Now you're going to become famous, Staff Sergeant, whether you want to or not. This shot is going to be declassified in about 72 hours. The media is going to lose their minds. First female sniper to make a shot over 2,800 meters. Combat conditions, moving target, record-breaking under any measurement. I don't want to be famous, sir. I want to do my job. Richard smiled sadly. I know, but that choice isn't yours anymore. Chen, you're being pulled off rotation. Orders came down from CENTCOM 20 minutes ago. You're going back to the States. Sir, I have 4 months left on this deployment. Your team will be fine. You have new orders. You're being transferred to Joint Special Operations Command. They want you training the next generation of precision marksmen. They want you consulting on long-range engagement protocols. And he hesitated. They want to study you. Figure out how you made a shot that shouldn't be possible. Maya felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This wasn't a promotion. This was her entire life being rewritten by a single trigger pull. When do I leave, sir? 48 hours. Get your gear squared away. Say your goodbyes. And Chen? Richards met her eyes. I know this isn't what you wanted, but what you did today, that's going to save lives for years to come. People will train better, shoot better, think better because of what you proved is possible. That matters. Maya saluted, turned, walked out of the talk into the Afghan sun. Davis was waiting outside, trying to look casual and failing completely. So, he asked, are we in trouble or are we heroes? Maya looked at him. Her spotter, her partner. The man who'd given her the numbers that made the impossible possible. I'm going home, she said quietly. They're pulling me out. Davis's face fell. What? No. Chen, we're a team. We've got 4 months. It's not a request, Davis, it's orders. She tried to smile and couldn't quite manage it. You'll get a new shooter. Someone good. Maybe someone better. There is no one better. Davis's voice was fierce. You just proved that. The whole damn world is about to find out what I already knew. You're the best there is. Maya turned away so he wouldn't see her face. I just wanted to be a soldier, Davis. That's all I ever wanted. Do my job, serve my country, come home in one piece. You did your job better than anyone in history. And now, he trailed off. Now everything changes, Maya finished. She was right. She just didn't know how much. The next 48 hours passed in a blur. Maya packed her personal gear, said goodbye to her unit, endured countless congratulations from soldiers who suddenly looked at her differently. She wasn't just Chen anymore. She wasn't just another sergeant. She was the sniper who made the impossible shot. The legend who'd never wanted to be one. On her last night at Leatherneck, she stood outside her hooch, looking up at the Afghan stars. They were impossibly bright here, away from city lights, away from civilization. The same stars that had watched over warriors for thousands of years. "Can't sleep?" A voice came from the darkness. Captain Morrison, her company commander. "Just thinking, ma'am." Morrison came to stand beside her. "You know, Chen, when you first joined this unit, some of the men didn't think you belonged. Woman sniper? They'd seen it in training, but in combat? They had doubts." Maya said nothing. She'd heard the whispers, felt the skepticism. "You proved them wrong every single day," Morrison continued. "Every patrol, every mission, every shot. And now you've done something none of them will ever do. Something most people can't even imagine. It was just math, ma'am, physics. I did what I was trained to do." Morrison laughed softly. "That's what makes you dangerous, Chen. You think it's just math. But it's not. It's instinct, talent, something that can't be taught. You're going to do great things back home. But—" She paused. "Don't lose yourself in the spotlight. Remember why you picked up that rifle in the first place." "To protect people," Maya said quietly. "Exactly. The location might change. The audience might change. But that purpose, that never changes. You're still a protector, Chen. Don't forget that." Morrison left. Maya stayed, watching the stars, thinking about the bullet that had flown 2,817 meters and changed her entire life. 2,817 meters, 1.75 miles, the longest shot of the war, and the moment everything changed. Tomorrow she'd board a plane to the States. Tomorrow she'd become someone else, a trainer, a consultant, a symbol. But tonight, under these Afghan stars, she was still Staff Sergeant Maya Chen, still a soldier. Still someone who believed that precision and discipline could save lives. She touched the sniper patch on her shoulder, felt the weight of the Barrett she'd cleaned and stored for transport, thought about Davis, about her team, about the 42 Americans whose deaths had been avenged with one shot, and she thought about the 70 to 90 people who'd go home alive because a bullet had found its target across an impossible distance. Maybe Colonel Richards was right. Maybe this did matter. The stars offered no answers. They never did. But as Maya Chen turned and walked back to her hooch for the last time, she made herself a promise. Whatever came next, fame, scrutiny, pressure, expectations, she would never forget what it felt like to be here, in the dirt, in the fight, doing the job that needed doing. The shot might have been the longest in the war, but her service, her dedication, her refusal to compromise, that would be even longer. That would be forever. The cameras were waiting at Dover Air Force Base. Maya hadn't expected that. She'd imagined a quiet return, processing through customs, a brief debrief, maybe a few days of leave before reporting to Fort Bragg for her new assignment with JSOC. Instead, she walked off the C-17 transport into a wall of light. Photographers, videographers, reporters corralled behind barriers by military police, shouting questions she couldn't hear over the roar of aircraft engines. Behind them, a small crowd of civilians holding signs, American flags, banners that read things she couldn't quite make out from this distance. "What the hell?" she muttered. The liaison officer who met her at the bottom of the stairs, a neat captain with a public affairs insignia, smiled apologetically. "Welcome home, Staff Sergeant Chen. I'm Captain Walsh, PAO. If you'll follow me, we'll get you through this quickly." "Through what?" "Sir, I was told this was a standard return." Walsh guided her toward a side entrance, away from the crowd. It was, until about 18 hours ago when the Pentagon held a press conference. "Your shot's been declassified. It's everywhere, Chen. Every news network, social media. You're trending worldwide." Maya's stomach dropped. Trending? #1 on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The video from the satellite feed, obviously sanitized and edited, has 40 million views. CNN's calling you the guardian angel of Helmand. Fox News has you as America's deadliest warrior. MSNBC did a special about women in combat roles, and you're the centerpiece. They entered a small building. Inside, more officers waited. A brigadier general she'd never met. A civilian woman in a sharp suit who had Pentagon media strategist written all over her. 2 more PAO officers with tablets and concerned expressions. The general extended his hand. Staff Sergeant Chen, Brigadier General Matheson, Army Public Affairs. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Maya shook his hand automatically. Sir, I'm not understanding what's happening. The woman in the suit spoke. Her voice was crisp, professional, and utterly terrifying. Staff Sergeant, I'm Rebecca Stern, Department of Defense Communications. What's happening is that you've become the most famous soldier in America overnight. The shot you made, the distance, the conditions, the outcome, has captured the public imagination. And the fact that you're a woman, that's made this story exponentially larger. I didn't ask for any of this, ma'am. No one ever does. Stern's expression softened slightly. But here we are. Now you have a choice. You can cooperate with a carefully managed media strategy, selected interviews, controlled messaging, emphasis on military values and your training, or you can refuse to participate and watch the media create their own narrative about you without your input. Maya looked at General Matheson. Sir, is this a request or an order? It's a request, Sergeant, but I'm strongly advising you to consider it. The Army needs positive stories right now. We're drawing down in Afghanistan, facing budget cuts, dealing with recruitment challenges. You're a reminder of why we're the best military in the world. You're proof that merit matters more than gender. You're a tool. Maya finished quietly. A propaganda tool. The room went very quiet. Stern broke the silence. Staff Sergeant, I understand your frustration, but consider this. Right now, thousands of young women are seeing your story and thinking that maybe they can serve too. Maybe they can be snipers, infantry, pilots, roles they never imagined for themselves. Hundreds of young men are seeing your story and realizing that their female colleagues can perform at the highest levels. You're changing minds. That's not propaganda, that's progress. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to say that she'd just been doing her job, that the shot was math and training, not heroism, that she didn't want to be a symbol. But she thought about those young women, girls in small towns who'd grown up being told what they couldn't do, who needed to see someone who looked like them doing the impossible. She thought about her own childhood, growing up in suburban California, obsessed with her grandfather's stories about Korea, about service, about purpose. Being told by high school counselors that maybe she should consider more traditional careers, proving them wrong at every step. Maybe she could be that proof for someone else. What do you need from me? She asked. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Media training, talking points, wardrobe consultations. You'll wear your dress uniform, Class A's with full decorations. We want professional, not tactical. Practice interviews with PAO officers playing hostile reporters. Briefings on what she could and couldn't discuss regarding operational details. And through it all, the story kept growing. The Army released official footage, heavily edited, of the shot. The satellite view showed the hide, the valley, the compound, the timestamp, the distance measurement, then the target falling. The footage ended with text. Staff Sergeant Maya Chen, U.S. Army sniper, 2,817 meters. Longest combat shot in Army history. 40 million views became 80 million, then 120 million. News programs dissected the shot. Ballistics experts were interviewed. Former military snipers talked about the impossibility of the variables. Sports shows compared it to famous long-distance golf shots and basketball buzzer beaters, completely missing the point. Maya watched some of it in her temporary quarters at Dover. Watched strangers analyze her life, her training, her motivations. Watched talking heads debate whether women should be in combat roles, using her as evidence for both sides of the argument. She felt like a specimen under a microscope. On the third day, Captain Walsh knocked on her door. "It's time, Chen. First interview. 60 minutes. They're set up in the conference room." Maya adjusted her Class A uniform. She'd never worn it more than twice a year before. Change of command ceremonies, military balls. Now it felt like armor. The ribbons on her chest included 2 bronze stars, a Purple Heart from an IED strike 2 years ago, the Army Commendation Medal, and dozens of others. The sniper tab on her shoulder. The staff sergeant stripes on her sleeves. She looked like exactly what she was, a professional soldier. "Let's get this over with," she said. The interviewer was Paul Brennan, a legend in journalism. 65 years old, 3 wars covered, 2 Peabody Awards. He stood when Maya entered, extended his hand warmly. "Staff Sergeant Chen, thank you for your service and for agreeing to this interview." "Sir." She shook his hand, aware of cameras tracking her every movement. They sat. Lights adjusted. A producer counted down. And then they were live. "Staff Sergeant Maya Chen is 28 years old." Brennan began, looking into the camera. "She grew up in Sacramento, California. She joined the Army at 19, volunteered for sniper training at 22, and has served 3 combat tours in Afghanistan. 2 weeks ago, she made a shot that military experts are calling nearly impossible. A shot that saved potentially hundreds of lives. And tonight, she's here to tell us how." He turned to Maya. "Staff Sergeant, walk us through that day. What was going through your mind when you realized how far the shot was?" Maya had practiced this answer. Practiced it a dozen times with the PAO coaches. But now, under the lights, with millions of people about to watch, she found herself abandoning the script. "Honestly, sir, I was thinking about math. Wind speed, altitude differential, bullet drop. I was thinking about my spotter, Corporal Davis, giving me numbers I needed to trust. And I was thinking about the 42 Americans that Target had already killed. That if I didn't take the shot, if I didn't make it, he'd kill more." Brennan leaned forward. "Some critics have questioned whether engaging at that distance was worth the risk. Your position was hidden. The shot revealed your location, putting you and Corporal Davis in immediate danger. Why take that risk?" "Because that's the job, sir. We weren't there on vacation. We had a mission. Eliminate a high-value target who was actively planning to kill coalition forces. The distance wasn't ideal. The conditions weren't perfect. But the opportunity was there, and we had the training to attempt it." Would those critics rather we'd let him walk away? Let him execute his plans? Kill 70 more soldiers? No, of course not. But there's a difference between acknowledging necessity and celebrating violence. Some people are uncomfortable with how this shot has been portrayed. As heroic, even admirable. You took a human life. Maya met his eyes steadily. This was the question she'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. "Mr. Brennan, I don't celebrate violence. I've seen enough of it to last a lifetime. But I'm a soldier. I was deployed to a combat zone to protect my fellow service members and to eliminate threats to American forces. Khalid Nasir was responsible for 17 IED attacks. He recruited children to be suicide bombers. Intelligence confirmed he was planning attacks that would have killed dozens of my brothers and sisters in uniform. Taking his life wasn't something I wanted to do. It was something I needed to do. And if I had to make that choice again, I would. Every time." Silence. Brennan seemed to be weighing her words. "You're being called a hero," he said finally. "Does that label fit comfortably?" "No, sir. Heroes are people who sacrifice themselves for others. I was doing my job. The real heroes are the medics who run into fire to save wounded soldiers, the infantry who hold positions against impossible odds, the families back home who wait and worry and keep everything together while we're gone. I'm not a hero. I'm just a soldier who got lucky with a good spotter and the right training. The longest combat shot in Army history. Possibly the longest in modern military history. That's more than luck, Staff Sergeant." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "Well, sir, I won't lie and say skill wasn't involved. But at that distance, with that wind, with a moving target, luck definitely played a part. I made the best shot I could. The fact that it hit, that was a lot of factors aligning perfectly. Luck, physics, maybe a little divine intervention. Brennan chuckled. Are you religious, Staff Sergeant? I am, sir. I was raised Catholic. And out there, in the mountains, making impossible shots? Yeah, I pray. I pray before every mission. I pray for my team's safety. And I pray that if I have to take a shot, it's the right shot, that it protects people who deserve protecting. The interview continued for another 30 minutes. Questions about her childhood, her training, what it was like being a woman in a predominantly male field. Questions about her future plans, her fears, her hopes. Maya answered honestly. Spoke about the mentors who'd believed in her. The instructors at sniper school who'd pushed her harder than they pushed anyone else. Not because she was a woman, but because they saw her potential. The soldiers she'd served with who judged her on performance, not gender. She spoke about the challenges too. The sexual harassment she'd faced early in her career. The assumptions that she was weaker, less capable. The constant need to prove herself. But here's what people don't understand, she said near the end. I shouldn't have to be exceptional to be accepted. I shouldn't have to make record-breaking shots to be respected. Every woman in uniform faces this pressure, to be twice as good to be considered half as competent. That needs to change. We need to be judged on merit, on performance, on character, not on gender. Brennan nodded slowly. And yet, isn't your exceptional performance exactly what's opening doors for other women? Isn't this shot proving that women can perform at the highest levels of combat? Maybe, Maya admitted, but it shouldn't take a world record to prove that. It should be obvious. Women have been serving in combat roles for years now. Flying helicopters, leading infantry platoons, defusing bombs. We've been proving ourselves every day. The fact that it took a shot like mine to get mainstream attention, that says more about our society's blind spots than it does about female capability. When the interview ended, Brennan thanked her genuinely. That was powerful, Staff Sergeant. You spoke from the heart. People are going to respond to that. Maya stood, saluted, and left. In the hallway, Captain Walsh was waiting with a tablet. Chen, you need to see this. The interview was being live-streamed on the 60 Minutes website. It's already got 15 million views, and social media. He turned the tablet toward her. Twitter was exploding. Maya Chen was trending #1 worldwide. Longest shot was #3, but it wasn't just congratulations. There was pushback. Fierce, angry pushback. Conservative commentators were calling her a politically correct poster child. Liberal critics were saying she was being used to justify militarism. Anti-war activists condemned her as a glorified killer. Pro-military groups defended her, but in ways that made her uncomfortable, talking about her looks, her femininity, as if those things mattered. And then there were the death threats. Dozens of them. Hundreds. People who thought she was a pawn of the military-industrial complex. People who thought she was a feminist icon who needed to be silenced. People who just hated women in positions of power. Maya stared at the screen, felt something inside her crack. How much more of this is there? She asked quietly. Walsh looked uncomfortable. You have 4 more major interviews scheduled. Good Morning America, CNN, Joe Rogan's podcast, and a profile in Time magazine. After that, the media tour is done, and you report to Bragg for your JSOC assignment. 4 more interviews. 4 more chances to be picked apart by strangers. 4 more opportunities to say the wrong thing and become a pariah or a martyr. She thought about refusing. Thought about walking away from all of it, consequences be damned. But then she thought about Rebecca Stern's words, about the young women watching, about being the proof that someone else needed. Okay, she said. I'll do them. All of them. But after that, I'm done. No more interviews. No more media. I go back to being a soldier. Understood? Walsh nodded. I'll make sure the message gets to the right people. The next 4 interviews were variations on the first. The same questions asked different ways. The same opportunities to be turned into a symbol she didn't want to be. But Maya learned to navigate them. Learned to stick to her truth. She was a soldier who'd done her job. Nothing more. Nothing less. The Good Morning America interview was softer, more personal. They asked about her family, her parents who'd emigrated from Taiwan when she was 3, who'd worked brutal hours to give her opportunities. her younger brother who'd followed her into the service, now a Marine Corps officer. CNN was more political. The host tried to get her to comment on defense budget debates, on women in combat policy, on the Afghanistan withdrawal timeline. Maya deflected with practiced precision. I'm a soldier, not a policymaker. I trust my chain of command to make those decisions. Joe Rogan's podcast was unexpected. She'd been worried about it. Rogan's reputation for controversial takes, for pushing boundaries. But he'd been respectful, genuinely curious about the technical aspects of long-range shooting. They'd talked for 3 hours about ballistics, about training, about the mental game of sniper work, and he'd asked the question no one else had. Do you have nightmares? Maya had paused, looked at the microphone, thought about lying. Yes, she'd said simply. Not about the shots I took, about the ones I missed, about the soldiers I couldn't save. Every sniper I know carries those ghosts. We don't talk about them much, but they're there. That moment of vulnerability had gone viral. She Carries became a hashtag. Veterans started sharing their own stories. Suddenly, Maya wasn't just a symbol of military prowess. She was a reminder of military cost. The Time magazine profile was the last. They'd followed her for 3 days, from morning PT to evening briefings at Fort Bragg, where she'd finally arrived. The photographer had captured her in moments of vulnerability, studying ballistics charts, cleaning her rifle, staring out a window at nothing. The cover photo was simple, Maya in her dress uniform, looking directly at the camera, with the headline, "The Shot That Changed Everything." When she saw it on newsstands, Maya felt a strange detachment. That woman on the cover looked like her, but it wasn't her. It was a version of her that the world had created, a hero, an icon, a symbol. She was none of those things. She was just a soldier who'd made a long shot. 6 weeks after returning from Afghanistan, Maya finally reported for her actual assignment at Fort Bragg. The Joint Special Operations Command facility was impressive. State-of-the-art ranges, simulation centers, classrooms filled with technology that hadn't existed when she'd gone through sniper school. Her new role was instructor and consultant. She'd be teaching advanced marksmanship, developing new training protocols, and working with engineers on next-generation sniper systems. It should have been exciting. It should have been the pinnacle of her career. Instead, it felt like exile. She wasn't in the field, wasn't with her team, wasn't doing what she'd trained her entire adult life to do. She was teaching, talking, explaining the shot over and over to people who looked at her like she was a curiosity instead of a colleague. Chen. A voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find Command Sergeant Major Williams, the senior enlisted advisor for the training division. Welcome to Bragg. Got a minute? Yes, Sergeant Major. They walked to his office. Williams was a legend, 30 years in the Army, multiple combat tours, the kind of soldier who commanded respect just by entering a room. He gestured for her to sit. Chen, I'm going to be straight with you. You look miserable. Maya blinked. Sergeant Major, Don't bullshit me. I've been watching you for 3 days. You go through the motions, you do the job, but your heart's not in it. You miss the field. Yes, Sergeant Major, I do. Williams nodded slowly. I read your file. Read it thoroughly. You're one of the best snipers I've ever encountered on paper. 43 confirmed combat kills, multiple commendations. And that shot in Afghanistan? That's the kind of thing that gets studied for decades. You should be proud. I am, Sergeant Major, but you didn't join to be famous. You joined to serve. And right now, you feel like you're being paraded around instead of being used properly. Maya met his eyes. Yes, Sergeant Major. That's exactly how I feel. Williams leaned back in his chair. Here's what you need to understand, Chen. The Army didn't pull you back to be cruel. They pulled you back because your value has changed. You're not just a sniper anymore. You're proof of concept. You're living evidence that our training works, that our standards are right, that pushing the limits of human capability produces results. I'd rather be proving that in the field. I know. But think bigger. You train 10 snipers to be even 50% as good as you. That's 10 force multipliers. You consult on a new rifle system that gives our soldiers a 2% improvement in accuracy? That's thousands of lives potentially saved over the weapon's service life. You give one speech that inspires one kid to join the army who turns out to be the next great soldier. That impact compounds forever. He paused. You made the longest shot of the war, Chen. Now you need to make the longest impact. And that happens here, in training, in development, in changing how we think about what's possible. Maya wanted to argue. Wanted to say that impact didn't matter if it felt hollow. But Williams wasn't wrong. She'd trained under great instructors. Everything she knew, someone had taught her. Maybe it was time to pass that knowledge forward. I'll give it my best, Sergeant Major. That's all I'm asking. And Chen? Williams smiled slightly. Stop reading the comments on social media. Half those people have never shot a rifle, much less made a combat decision. Their opinions don't matter. What matters is the work. Focus on that. She left his office feeling slightly better. Not healed, but steadier. The shot had changed everything. Now she had to figure out what that everything meant. The young lieutenant couldn't stop staring. Maya had gotten used to it over the past 3 months at Fort Bragg. The stares, the whispers, the way conversations stopped when she entered a room. But this kid, and he was a kid, fresh out of ranger school with a tab so new it probably still smelled like the factory, was being particularly obvious about it. Lieutenant, Maya's voice was flat. Eyes on your target, not on me. They were on Range 47, the long-distance course that stretched almost 2 miles across the North Carolina Pine Barrens. Maya was running advanced training for JSOC personnel, Special Forces, Rangers, SEALs, who were already among the best marksmen in the world and wanted to be better. The lieutenant jerked his attention back to his scope. Sorry, Staff Sergeant, it's an honor to... Spot your wind, Maya interrupted. You've got a 3/4 value crosswind at 8 knots. Adjust or miss. He adjusted. Fired. The target at 1,200 meters rang with a hit. Good shot. Not perfect, but good. Better, Maya said. Next shooter. The class rotated. 8 students, all male, all experienced, all watching her with a mixture of respect and something else, something that made her skin crawl even though she couldn't quite name it. Master Sergeant Kowalski, the senior instructor, called for a break. The students dispersed, heading for water and shade. Kowalski approached Maya, his weathered face creased with concern. Chen, got a second? They walked away from the range, far enough that no one would overhear. You're too hard on them, Kowalski said bluntly. Maya bristled. They're special operations. They should be able to handle criticism. It's not the criticism, it's the tone. You're teaching them like you hate them. I don't hate them. Then what's the problem? Because I've been doing this job for 12 years, and I've never seen an instructor with your skill level be this miserable doing it. Maya looked out at the range, at the targets that seemed tiny from this distance, at the world she'd once commanded with mathematics and patience. They don't see me as an instructor, she said quietly. They see me as the woman who made the shot. They're not here to learn from me. They're here to say they met me, to take a selfie with the famous sniper, to tell stories at bars about how they trained with Maya Chen. Kowalski was silent for a moment. Some of them, yeah, probably. But Chen, most of these guys are here because they're serious. They want to be better. They want what you can teach them. You're so busy being defensive that you're not giving them a chance to learn. I'm not defensive, I'm just angry. You're angry that you're here instead of deployed. Angry that your life got turned upside down by one shot. Angry that people know your name. I get it. But these soldiers, they didn't do that to you. Taking it out on them isn't fair. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to tell Kowalski that he didn't understand what it was like to be turned into a commodity, to have your personhood stripped away and replaced with a symbol. But he was right. She'd been treating her students like obstacles instead of allies, and that wasn't who she wanted to be. I'll do better, she said finally. Good, because you've got a new student starting tomorrow. Special case direct from the Pentagon, and this one's going to require your absolute best. Maya frowned. Who? Kowalski handed her a file folder. Read it tonight. Report to Colonel Mitchell's office at 800 tomorrow for briefing. This one's complicated. That night, in her quarters on base, Maya opened the file. Name, Captain Jennifer J.J. Morrison. Age, 26. Unit, 75th Ranger Regiment, Alpha Company. Specialization, infantry officer, platoon leader. Combat tours, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. Decorations, Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart. Maya studied the photograph. Morrison was blonde, athletic, with eyes that had seen things. The Silver Star citation was attached. Maya read it twice. Captain Morrison's platoon was ambushed during a village clearing operation near Kandahar. Despite being wounded by small arms fire, Captain Morrison rallied her soldiers, directed effective counterfire, and personally carried 2 wounded Rangers to safety under heavy enemy contact. Her actions resulted in the successful completion of the mission with no friendly KIA. Her courage under fire and leadership under the most extreme circumstances exemplify. The citation went on, but Maya got the picture. Morrison was legitimate, a real combat leader who'd earned her decorations the hard way. But there was a note at the bottom of the file, handwritten, Chen. Captain Morrison requested this training specifically. She wants to add advanced marksmanship to her skill set. She also specifically requested you as her instructor. Handle with care. This one matters. Caller Mitchell. Maya closed the file, leaned back on her bunk, stared at the ceiling. A female officer, combat proven, requesting training from her specifically. This could go very right or very wrong. Colonel Mitchell's office at 800 was exactly what Maya expected. Organized, efficient, decorated with the kind of military memorabilia that spoke to 30 years of service. Mitchell himself was a West Point graduate, Special Forces veteran, and the kind of officer who'd earned respect through competence rather than politics. Captain Morrison was already there, standing at attention. In person, she was shorter than Maya had expected, maybe 5'6", but carried herself with a confidence that made her seem taller. At ease, Mitchell said, Staff Sergeant Chen, thank you for coming. I wanted to brief you both together. Captain Morrison, you've met Staff Sergeant Chen's reputation. Staff Sergeant, you've read Captain Morrison's file. Let's establish some ground rules. He looked at Morrison. Captain, you're here to learn. Staff Sergeant Chen is one of the finest marksmen in the Army, and she's going to teach you advanced techniques that could save your life and the lives of your soldiers. You will follow her instruction exactly, even though she's enlisted and you're an officer. In this training environment, rank doesn't matter. Competence does. Understood? Yes, sir. Morrison's voice was crisp. Mitchell turned to Maya. Staff Sergeant, Captain Morrison is not here for publicity. She's not here to meet a celebrity. She's here because she's being considered for a special operations position that requires advanced marksmanship skills. Your job is to evaluate whether she has the aptitude and determination to meet those standards. You will be fair, thorough, and honest in your assessment. Understood? Yes, sir. Good. You have 6 weeks. Captain Morrison will train with you daily in addition to your other instruction duties. At the end of 6 weeks, you'll provide a written evaluation of her capabilities. Questions? Maya had about 1,000 questions. Why was an infantry officer, already highly decorated, seeking sniper training? What special operations position required this specific skill set? Why had Morrison requested her specifically, but she asked none of them? No, sir. Dismissed. Captain Morrison, you're on Staff Sergeant Chen's schedule now. Don't disappoint me. They left together, walked across the base toward the range facilities in silence. Maya could feel Morrison's tension. The captain was nervous, though she was hiding it well. Finally, Maya spoke. Why did you request me specifically? Morrison glanced at her. Honestly? Honestly. Because you're the best. And because you're a woman who's had to prove herself every single day in a field that doesn't want you. I need to learn from someone who understands that. Maya stopped walking. Captain, if you're looking for some sisterhood bonding experience, you're going to be disappointed. I'm not here to be your mentor or your role model. I'm here to teach you to shoot. That's it. Morrison met her eyes steadily. Good, because I'm not here for a role model. I'm here to learn a skill that's going to keep my soldiers alive. Can you teach me that, or not? The challenge hung in the air between them. Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. Yeah, I can teach you that. But it's going to suck. I'm going to push you harder than anyone in your life has pushed you. I'm going to make you question whether you actually want this. And if you can't handle it, I'll write in my evaluation that you're not ready. Fair enough? Morrison smiled back. Fair enough, Staff Sergeant. When do we start? Right now. Drop your gear. We're doing a 5-mile run to warm up. Then we're going to the range, and you're going to fire 500 rounds today. Let's see what you're made of. Morrison was made of iron. Over the following 6 weeks, Maya discovered that the captain was possibly the most determined human being she'd ever met. Morrison showed up early, stayed late, and never complained. When Maya made her do 200 push-ups for jerking the trigger on a shot, Morrison did them without a word. When Maya had her hold a shooting position for an hour straight to build muscle memory, Morrison held it until her muscles trembled and tears of exhaustion ran down her face. And slowly, impossibly, Morrison got good. Not Maya-level good, not world record-breaking good, but solidly, competently, dangerously good. By week 3, she was hitting targets at 800 meters consistently. By week 5, she'd made a confirmed hit at 1,400 meters in variable wind conditions. They didn't talk much during training. Maya kept things professional, focused on technique and repetition. But in the quiet moments, waiting for wind to die down, cleaning rifles after a long day, they began to open up. "Can I ask you something?" Morrison said one evening. They were in the armory, breaking down their rifles after a particularly brutal training day. "Depends on the question." "The shot, the famous one. Did you know it would hit?" Maya paused, considering. Most people asked her technical questions about the shot. The distance, the wind, the calculations. But Morrison was asking about something deeper. "No," Maya said honestly. "I knew I'd done everything right. I knew the math was sound. But at that distance, with those variables, no one can know. You do the work, take the shot, and hope physics is on your side that day." It was. "Do you ever think about him, the target?" "Every day." Morrison looked up. "Really?" "Really. People think that taking a life at distance is easier. That looking through a scope makes it impersonal. But it doesn't. You see their face. You watch them move. You see their humanity, even when you know what they've done. And then you make the choice to end that. It stays with you. But you do it again. In a heartbeat, because the alternative was letting him kill more people. Soldiers like you, like me, like the guys in your platoon who trusted you to keep them safe. That's the weight we carry, not guilt for what we did, but the responsibility of knowing that our actions have consequences, that our decisions save lives or cost them. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "I killed someone at close range," she said softly, "during the ambush that got me the Silver Star. Taliban fighter came around a corner while I was evacuating a wounded ranger. I shot him twice in the chest with my M4, from maybe 10 feet away. I saw his eyes. And I think about him too, about whether he had a family, about whether he was there because he believed in something or because he had no other choice. And then I remember that he was about to kill my soldier, and I stopped caring about his motivations. He made his choice. I made mine." "That's the job," Maya said. "People who've never been there don't understand that. They think war is simple, good guys and bad guys. But it's not. It's just people making impossible choices in terrible situations and living with the consequences." They finished cleaning their rifles in companionable silence. By week 6, Morrison was ready for the final evaluation. Maya had designed a comprehensive test, long-range shooting at multiple distances, moving targets, elevated positions, unknown distance scenarios. It was harder than anything Morrison would face in actual combat, but that was the point. Train harder than you fight. Morrison passed everything. Not with flying colors, but solidly, competently. She'd become a legitimate advanced marksman. On the last day, after the final qualification, Maya handed Morrison her evaluation. "You can read it now or wait for Colonel Mitchell's debrief. Your choice." Morrison opened it immediately, read the first paragraph, then looked up at Maya with something like shock. "You wrote that I exceeded standard. That I'm recommended for advanced tactical training. That's what I observed. Chen, Maya, thank you. This means everything. Maya shifted uncomfortably. You earned it. I just evaluated honestly. Can I ask what you're going to do next, after this assignment? I don't know. They're talking about sending me on a publicity tour. Speaking at military events, doing recruitment drives, using my story to inspire people. She couldn't keep the bitterness out of her voice. Morrison frowned. You hate that idea. I hate being a symbol instead of a soldier. Then don't be a symbol. Be both. Maya, you don't see it, but you're changing things just by existing. Every woman who sees your story realizes that Special Operations isn't a boys' club anymore. Every commander who sees your competence has to reconsider their assumptions. That matters. I just wanted to serve quietly. Do my job, not be famous. I know. But you don't get to choose that anymore. The shot happened. The world noticed. Now you have a responsibility, not to the army, not to the media, but to the women who are coming after you. To make sure the door you kicked open stays open. Maya looked at Morrison, saw the determination in her eyes, the absolute certainty. Is that why you requested this training? To walk through that door? Yes, I want to try out for Delta Force. Female candidates have been allowed for 3 years now, but only 2 have made it through selection. I want to be number 3, and I needed someone who understood the pressure of being the first woman to teach me how to handle it. Delta? Maya felt a chill. Morrison, that's a different level. Selection is brutal, 70% failure rate. I know, but I'm going to try. Because someone has to. And if I fail, at least I tried. She paused. Come with me. What? Try out with me. For Delta. You're already JSOC. You have the skills. And God knows you hate being an instructor. Come do the thing you actually want to do. Maya stared at her. The suggestion was insane. Delta Force, the Army's most elite special operations unit. Selection was 6 months of hell. Most candidates were already special forces or rangers with a decade of experience. The physical standards were inhuman. The mental pressure broke people routinely. And for women? It was even harder. Not officially. But the scrutiny, the skepticism, the constant need to prove yourself, that never ended. I'd never make it, Maya said. Bullshit. You made a shot that shouldn't exist. You survived 3 combat tours. You trained me from mediocre to competent in 6 weeks. You're exactly what Delta is looking for. I'm a sniper, not an operator. So be a sniper operator. Delta has marksmen. They need people who can think, adapt, and execute under impossible pressure. That's you. Maya wanted to say no. Wanted to explain all the reasons why it was a terrible idea. Wanted to stay safe in her instructor role, teaching people, avoiding risk. But then she thought about the past 3 months. The boredom, the frustration, the feeling of being wasted. And she thought about Morrison's words. Someone has to. When's the next selection course? She asked. Morrison grinned. Starts in 8 weeks. I've already applied. The paperwork for you would take maybe 2 weeks if you have the right endorsements. I'd need Colonel Mitchell's approval. Then let's go ask him. Colonel Mitchell looked at them like they'd lost their minds. You want to do what? Maya and Morrison stood at attention in his office. They'd come directly from the range, still in their combat uniforms, smelling like gunpowder and determination. Request permission to apply for Delta Force selection, sir, Maya repeated. Mitchell leaned back in his chair, studied them both. Captain Morrison, I expected this from you. You've been building towards special operations your entire career, but Staff Sergeant Chen, you're here to be an instructor, to develop training programs, to consult on advanced systems. With respect, sir, I'm here because I was pulled off deployment and told this is where I'd serve, but it's not where I want to be. And Delta is? I don't know, sir, but I know I need to find out. I joined the Army to be challenged, to push myself, to serve at the highest level I'm capable of. That's not happening here. Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up something on his computer, read it, frowned. Chen, do you have any idea how much political capital has been invested in you? The Pentagon wants you visible. They want you inspiring the next generation. They want you as proof that the Army's integration policies work. If you go to Delta selection and fail, and statistically you probably will, that becomes a black eye for everyone. And if I succeed, then you disappear into the most classified unit in the military, and the Pentagon loses their poster child. Either way, they're not going to be happy. Sir, with respect, I don't care if they're happy. I care about serving effectively. If that means being a poster child, fine. But if there's a chance to do more, to be more than a symbol, I have to try. Mitchell looked at Morrison. And you? You know your odds, Captain. You're already a decorated officer. You could stay in the Rangers, make major in a few years, have a solid career. Why risk it? Because solid isn't enough, sir. I want to be exceptional, and I want to prove that women can do this. Not in theory, in practice. Mitchell sighed, closed his computer. You're both idiots. You know that? Yes, sir, they said in unison. Fine. I'll approve the paperwork. But understand something. If you fail, you come back here and you don't complain about instructor duty ever again. And if you succeed, he smiled slightly, well, I'll never see you again because Delta doesn't exist officially. So this is me saying good luck and don't embarrass me. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. They left his office, walked across the base in the fading evening light. Maya felt something she hadn't felt in months, hope. We're really doing this, Morrison said. Yeah, we really are. You scared? Terrified. You? Same. But Chen? Morrison grinned. If we make it through this, we're going to be the most dangerous duo in the Army. Maya laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time since returning from Afghanistan. Let's survive selection first. Then we can worry about being dangerous. But as they walked, Maya felt something shift inside her. The anger was still there. The frustration at being famous, at being a symbol, at having her life turned into a commodity. But underneath that, something new was growing. Purpose. She'd made the longest shot of the war. Now she was going to prove it wasn't luck. She was going to prove she belonged at the highest level, and if the world was watching, let them watch. She'd give them something real to see. The cadre member's face was stone. Candidate Chen, you have 30 seconds to complete this casualty carry. If you fail, you're done. If you quit, you're done. If you succeed, you move to the next event. Choose. Maya looked at the casualty, a 180-pound dummy that had to be carried 400 meters uphill. She'd already been awake for 72 hours, already run 40 miles over the past 3 days, already completed obstacle courses, land navigation exercises, and stress shoots that would break most people. This was day 18 of Delta Force selection, and every single day had been designed to make her quit. I'll complete it, Sergeant, she said, then move. Maya grabbed the dummy, threw it across her shoulders in a fireman's carry and started running. Her legs screamed, her lungs burned, every muscle in her body begged her to stop. The world narrowed to just this, one foot in front of the other. Keep moving. Don't stop. Behind her, Morrison was doing the same exercise. They'd been separated for most of selection. Candidates worked individually, not as teams, but Maya had glimpsed her occasionally. Mud-covered, exhausted, still moving. They were both still here, still fighting. 300 meters. Her vision started to tunnel. The dummy seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She thought about the shot in Afghanistan, thought about the math, the precision, the clarity. This was different. This was just suffering, just will against biology. 200 meters. Her knee, the one that had been injured by an IED blast 2 years ago, felt like it was grinding bone on bone. She ignored it. Pain was temporary. Quitting was forever. 100 meters. The finish line. An orange cone that looked impossibly far away. She focused on it. Nothing else existed. Not the cadre watching with clipboards. Not the other candidates who'd already quit. Not the voice in her head screaming to stop. Just the cone. 50 meters. 20. 10. She crossed the line and dropped the dummy. Collapsed to her hands and knees, gasping, the world spinning. Candidate Chen, stand up. She stood, swayed, stayed upright. The cadre member made a note on his clipboard. You pass. Water station is 50 meters that direction. You have 15 minutes before the next event. Move. Maya stumbled toward the water station. Drank. Forced herself to eat an energy bar even though her stomach wanted to reject it. Around her, other candidates were doing the same. 12 of them left. Started with 63. Now they were down to 12. 2 were women, her and Morrison. Delta Force selection was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. It wasn't Ranger School's physical brutality or Sniper School's technical precision. It was psychological warfare disguised as military training. The cadre never told you if you were passing or failing. They never encouraged, never insulted. They just observed with dead eyes and made notes on clipboards. Every event was timed, but you weren't told the standard. You just had to push until they told you to stop. The land navigation courses were the worst. You were given coordinates, minimal equipment, and impossible timelines. Navigate through mountains, forests, swamps, day and night. Miss a checkpoint? No one told you. You just kept going, wondering if you'd already failed hours ago. The mental games were constant. Cadre would pull you aside for counseling that was actually just an invitation to quit. You've done well. You've proved yourself. This isn't for everyone. No shame in withdrawing now. Delivered in calm, reasonable tones that made quitting sound logical, Maya refused every time, so did Morrison. By week 3, they were down to 8 candidates. The attrition was brutal, but expected. Delta didn't want people who could pass. They wanted people who absolutely refused to fail. On day 22, Maya saw Morrison for the first time in days. They'd been brought to the same water point after a 40-mile ruck march. Morrison looked like she'd been through a war, which Maya supposed she had. "Still here," Morrison croaked, her voice ragged from dehydration. "Still here," Maya confirmed. "They're trying to break us worse than the men. You notice that?" Maya had noticed. The cadre seemed to push them longer, harder, with less rest. Testing whether they'd complain, whether they'd cry discrimination, whether they'd break. "They can try," Maya said. A cadre member approached. Candidates Chen and Morrison. The following candidates have been removed from selection for performance deficiencies. He read 4 names, men who'd been rock-solid operators, Rangers, Special Forces, gone. "You 2 are still here. Do you know why?" Neither of them answered. It was a trap question. Everything was a trap question. "You're still here because you haven't given us a reason to remove you. Yet. But understand something. Making it through selection doesn't mean you've made it into the unit. Passing selection means you're invited to try out for the unit. That's when the real evaluation begins. Don't celebrate yet." He walked away. Morrison looked at Maya. "He's right, you know. We could pass selection and still wash out of the operator training course. This is just the beginning." "I know, but it's farther than most people get. We keep going." "Yeah, we keep going." Week 4 was water confidence. Maya hated water confidence. They were at a pool facility that looked benign until you saw the cadre grinning. Then you knew you were in trouble. The exercise was simple in concept. You were bound hand and foot, thrown into the pool, and expected to survive. Not just survive, to stay calm, conserve energy, and complete specific tasks while underwater and incapacitated. Maya watched the first candidate go. A Navy SEAL, someone who'd literally trained for water operations his entire career, made it 40 seconds before he panicked. Thrashed. Had to be pulled out by safety divers, eliminated. Her turn. The cadre bound her wrists behind her back with zip ties, bound her ankles. "Ready, candidate?" No, she wasn't ready. She'd nearly drowned as a child. Had nightmares about it. Water was her weakness, her fear, the thing that made her question whether she could do this. "Yes, Sergeant." They pushed her in. The world exploded into cold and pressure. Maya sank immediately, unable to use her limbs. The instinct to thrash, to fight, was overwhelming. Her heart hammered. Her lungs screamed for air. She forced herself to go still. Conserve oxygen. Think. The water was 12 feet deep. She was sinking. At the bottom, she needed to push off. Dolphin kick to the surface. Grab a breath. Repeat. She hit bottom, oriented. Pushed off with her shoulders against the pool floor. arching her back, using her core to drive her body upward. She broke the surface, gasped air, sank again. Push, rise, breathe, sink, over and over. Her abs burned, her lungs ached. But she stayed calm, mechanical, treating it like a shooting problem. Variables, depth, body position, oxygen consumption. Solution: efficient movement, controlled breathing. Don't panic. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10. Candidate Chen, exit the pool. Divers pulled her out, cut her loose. She lay on the concrete, coughing water, her whole body shaking. You pass. Next candidate. Morrison's turn. Maya watched through blurred vision as Morrison went through the same hell. Morrison lasted 8 minutes. Struggled more than Maya had. But she didn't panic, didn't quit, both still here. Week 5 was isolation. They put you in a cell, alone, no windows, no interaction. Random intervals of light and dark, so you lost track of time. Occasionally, food would be shoved through a slot. Occasionally, a cadre member would take you to an interrogation room and ask the same questions over and over. Why are you here? What makes you think you're special? Wouldn't you rather be somewhere easier? Maya used the time to think. About the shot. About why she'd really come here. About what she was trying to prove. The truth was complicated. Yes, she wanted to serve at the highest level. Yes, she hated being an instructor. But there was something else. Something darker. She was running. Running from the fame. Running from the expectations. Running from the version of herself that the world had created. If she made it into Delta, she'd disappear. Become classified. Unknown. Just another operator doing the work without recognition. Maybe that was selfish. Maybe Morrison was right, and she had a responsibility to be visible, to be the example. But God, she was tired of being watched. She didn't know how long she was in isolation. Days, weeks, time melted into nothing. But eventually, they pulled her out. Candidate Chen, selection is complete. You've been evaluated on physical capability, mental resilience, land navigation, water confidence, stress management, and character. Your performance has been analyzed. You will be notified of the results within 72 hours. Dismissed. That was it. No congratulations, no indication of success or failure. Just done. She stumbled out of the building into sunlight that felt like knives. Morrison was there, looking equally destroyed. That's it? Morrison asked. We just wait? Apparently. They were driven to temporary quarters, given time to shower, sleep, eat. It felt surreal after weeks of controlled suffering. That night, unable to sleep, Maya sat outside and looked at the stars. The same stars she'd looked at in Afghanistan after making the shot. The same stars that had watched her journey from unknown sniper to famous marksman to, what? Failed Delta candidate? She didn't know yet. Morrison came out to sit beside her. Can't sleep either? No. Think we made it? I don't know. I did everything they asked, but that doesn't mean it was enough. If we don't make it, what will you do? Maya considered. Go back to Bragg. Be an instructor, except that maybe the shot was the peak and everything else is just after. That's depressing. It's realistic. Morrison shook her head. You know what I think? I think you're scared, not of failing, of succeeding. Because if you make it into Delta, you can't hide anymore. You can't pretend the shot was luck. You'll have to accept that you're actually exceptional, and that terrifies you. That's amateur psychology. Doesn't make it wrong. Maya was quiet. Because Morrison wasn't wrong. The shot had been luck. It had to be luck. Because if it wasn't luck, if it was skill and talent and everything she'd worked for, then what? Then she had to live up to it. Forever. Had to be that person who made impossible shots. Had to carry the weight of being exceptional. What if I'm not as good as everyone thinks? Maya said quietly. Then you'll find out. And you'll either get better or you'll fail. But at least you'll know. At least you tried. 72 hours later, the notification came. Maya and Morrison were called to a nondescript building. No markings, no identification. the kind of place that officially didn't exist. Inside, a colonel waited. No name tape, no unit insignia, just rank. Candidates Chen and Morrison, congratulations. You've successfully completed Delta Force selection. You are invited to proceed to the operator training course. Be advised, passing selection does not guarantee acceptance into the unit. The OTC is 6 months of advanced tactical training. You will be evaluated continuously. You can be removed at any time. Questions? Maya's mind was reeling. She'd passed, actually passed. Out of 63 candidates, how many had made it? She didn't know. Didn't matter. She was still here. No, sir, she said. No, sir, Morrison echoed. Good. You start in 2 weeks. Use that time to recover, to train, to prepare. The OTC will make selection look easy. Dismissed. Outside, Morrison grabbed Maya and hugged her. Actually hugged her, something they'd never done despite weeks of shared suffering. We did it, Morrison breathed. Holy shit, we actually did it. Maya hugged back, feeling something crack inside her. Relief, pride, terror. Yeah, we did it. Now we just have to survive the next 6 months. We will, together. The operator training course was everything the cadre had promised and worse. Advanced weapons training, close quarters combat, hostage rescue scenarios, vehicle interdiction, explosive breaching, high-altitude parachuting, every skill that Delta operators needed, compressed into 6 months of continuous evolution. And the psychological evaluation never stopped. Cadre watched everything. How you interacted with teammates, how you handled failure, how you responded to stress. Maya threw herself into it, discovered that the shooting skills that had made her famous were just the beginning. She had to learn to shoot while moving, while injured, while under fire. Had to learn to breach doors, clear rooms, operate in teams of varying sizes. It was humbling. The other OTC candidates were the best of the best. Rangers who'd done a dozen deployments, SEALs with kill counts in the triple digits, Special Forces soldiers who spoke 5 languages and had operated in every hostile environment on Earth. And then there was her and Morrison, the women, the unknowns. At first, the men were skeptical, not hostile. Delta had zero tolerance for that, but doubtful. Women had passed selection before. None had completed OTC. Most washed out in the first month. But Maya and Morrison didn't wash out. They were slower on the ruck marches, weaker on some of the physical events, but they were smarter, more precise, better at communication and problem solving, and they had something to prove. By month 3, the skepticism faded. You couldn't doubt someone who'd cleared 100 kill houses with you, someone who'd pulled their weight on every patrol, every exercise, every mission. By month 5, Maya realized something had changed. The other candidates weren't looking at her as the woman. They were looking at her as Chen, a teammate, an operator. And that's when she knew she'd made it. The final exercise was a full mission profile. Intelligence set a high-value target, a terrorist facilitator, was hiding in a compound in a dense urban environment. The compound was heavily defended. Collateral damage had to be minimized. Time window was limited. 12 operators, 1 mission. Everything they'd trained for. Maya was assigned as the precision marksman, providing overwatch while the assault team breached. Morrison was on the assault team, second through the door. They rode to the site in blacked-out vehicles, approached on foot, set up positions. Through her scope, Maya watched the compound, counted guards, identified fields of fire, calculated ranges. Overwatch set, she radioed. I have visual on 6 hostiles, armed, alert status moderate. Copy, came the team leader's response. Stand by. The assault team moved, fast and silent, but someone spotted them. Guards raised weapons. Engage, the team leader ordered. Maya fired. Guard 1 dropped. 2, 3. Each shot precise, clinical, perfect. The kind of shots she'd trained her entire life to make. The assault team breached. Gunfire erupted. Radio chatter exploded. Room clear. Moving second floor. Hostile down. Through her scope, Maya watched Morrison move through the compound. Smooth, professional, dangerous. 3 minutes later. Jackpot. HVT secured. Moving to exfil. They'd done it. Perfect execution. Back at the base, the cadre assembled everyone. The colonel who'd notified them of selection success appeared. Ladies and gentlemen, you've completed the operator training course. Your performance has been evaluated. Some of you will receive offers to join this unit. Some will not. But all of you should be proud. You've proven yourself capable of operating at the highest level in the United States military. He started reading names. Candidates stepped forward, received a handshake, a nod. Candidate Morrison. Morrison stepped forward, received her handshake, smiled. Candidate Chen. Maya stepped forward. The colonel met her eyes. Staff Sergeant Chen, when you arrived, there were questions about whether a sniper could transition to full-spectrum operations, whether someone famous could operate in a classified environment, whether someone who'd achieved perfection once could do it consistently. He paused. You've answered those questions. Welcome to Delta Force, Sergeant Chen. Maya shook his hand, felt the weight of the moment. This was real. She'd done it. Not because of the shot, not because of fame, because she'd earned it. That night, the new operators celebrated quietly. Morrison found Maya on the roof of their building looking at stars again. You keep coming up here, Morrison said. I like stars. They're constant, unchanging. No matter what happens down here, they're still up there. Poetic. Morrison sat beside her. We made it, Chen. We're actually Delta operators. Do you know how few people can say that? I know. So why don't you look happy? Maya considered the question. Because I don't know what comes next. We're operators now. We'll deploy. We'll do missions that never officially happened. We'll disappear from public record. And that's what I wanted. But you're wondering if you wasted the platform you had. If you should have stayed visible. Used your fame for something. Yeah. Morrison was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? I think you've been living for other people's expectations for too long. The army wanted you to be a symbol. The media wanted you to be a story. Even I wanted you to be a role model. But what do you want? Maya laughed. I have no idea. Then figure it out, because you're not done, Chen. The shot was just the beginning. This, Delta, this is just the next chapter. There's more coming. I can feel it. Maya looked at the stars. Thought about the bullet that had traveled 2,017 meters. Thought about the path that had brought her here. From unknown sniper to famous marksman to Delta Force operator. Morrison was right. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And for the first time since making the shot, Maya felt ready for what came next. Whatever that was. 3 months later, Maya deployed. The mission was classified. The location was classified. The target was classified. But the team was real. The threat was real. The stakes were real. And when Maya set up her rifle on a rooftop in a country she couldn't name, when she ranged a target at 2,400 meters, when she made the calculations and took the shot, it hit. Just like in Afghanistan, just like in training, just like every shot she'd ever trained to make. Because it was never about the distance. It was about the discipline, the dedication, the refusal to accept anything less than perfection. The longest shot of the war had changed everything. But Maya Chen had changed more. She'd gone from being a sniper who made one impossible shot to being an operator who made impossible shots routinely. From being a symbol to being a soldier. From being famous to being forgotten. And that finally was exactly where she wanted to be. In the dark. With her team. Doing the work that mattered. No cameras, no headlines, no applause. Just precision, purpose, service, the way it should be, the way it had always meant to be. The end.